Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf and to another tag video. And you know what I then always say? Yeah, me, doing another tag. And this one is the Bookish Boxes and Buzzwords tag, originally created by, let me check, Lizzie Fay Loves Books. And I was tagged by Olive from a book Olive a gazillion years ago. So, Olive, sorry for being so late and thank you for tagging me. Anyway, first question. Your go-to genre or favorite type of book? Well, the answer will not be a surprise to you. I think the biggest portion of what I read is what you call literary fiction. I like discovering new authors. You know that if you're following me for any length of time. So I like to read debut novels, at least one or two a month. And quite some new releases, but also backlists of authors that I discovered and I really liked, and classics. So that's all in the genre literary fiction. And of course, the other two genres I'm really drawn to, if it's fiction, is science fiction and mystery. And another genre which is nonfiction. I tend to read at least, I would say, 10%. Yes, Steve Donahue, I know that's not a lot, but I read nonfiction regularly, and at least 10% of my reading each month is nonfiction. Number two, I'm looking again at the questions on the screen, so forgive me for not looking at you while reading the questions, because I'm old and I can't remember the questions. Number two, retellings that you are drawn to. Um, uh, Let me start off with the negative. The retellings that I'm not drawn to is fairy tales. I've never liked fairy tales, not when I was a child. I never enjoyed them, and I don't like retellings of fairy tales. But that was not the question. The question was, which ones are you drawn to? I really like Greek myths retellings if it's done well. I recently read Circe by Madeline Miller, which I really enjoyed. The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker, I really enjoyed. The last one, Silence of the Girls, was about the Trojan War, and Circe was, of course, a retelling of the myth of Circe with a little bit of Odysseus in it, but that's only a small part. But I like this kind of myth retelling if it's done well. Number three, lifestyles or careers of the book characters. I don't think I have much of a preference there, to be quite honest. I mean, of course, I love reading books about writers or people involved in the publishing or journalists, because that's something, being a writer myself, that is close to my heart. I'm For the rest, I don't know whether I have a specific, other than that, lifestyles or careers that I'm specifically drawn to. I don't think so. No, not really. Number four, places or settings that you are drawn to. I'm a city girl. So, I mean, I read, if the premise is interesting or whatever, then I will read books set in the country. But I can relate to cities more than I can relate to country life, especially cities that I find fascinating. Singapore, or I've never been there, but it sounds fascinating. But urban life in generally, I think, draws me more in than life on a farm. But having said that, again, if you look at my list of books that I really loved the last couple of years, you will find plenty of books that are not set in a city, and I love them anyway. So it's not that I won't pick up a book if it's not set in a city. And because I love to read sci-fi, I'm very much drawn to a dystopian setting. I always love that. Or alternative history setting. So that's something that I'm always drawn to. Number five, relationships you enjoy reading about. Again, start with the negative. I'm just mostly not that interested in, the mid-30s Brooklyn couple divorce stuff. That most of the time it bores me. But if it's done well, I always like relationship developments in general in books. I mean, I could say I'm not that interested in a big family saga, but one of the books that I've read recently is Joyce Carol Oates' new novel, My Life as a Red, and that's all about family. But I didn't think it was a good book, but that had different reasons. But the family dynamics between the siblings, I thought is really interesting. So it's it for me it all depends whether it's something that is, if it's a really very standard relationship, like a marriage, a female male marriage, then it has to have a certain edge to it for me to find it interesting. But other than that, I love to read about friendship relationships, parents, children relationships. If it's interesting, yeah, not not a very helpful answer, I suppose, but there you go. Buzzwords in the title of the book. When I saw this question first, I really had to think of it because I mean, there are certain words like, book or library or writer, or that would, I think that would draw me into the title. But what I always like, if the title is a bit weird or makes you think, what does it mean? For instance, in my last video of the recent reads on Sunday, I discussed a book. The title is Faculty of Dreams. You don't have any idea what that means, and that's something that draws me. A title that is not self-explanatory, I think, is something that draws me to pick up a book if I see that title. But I don't have buzzwords that would prevent me, in a sense, from picking up a title. But a title that has a twist or is, sounds a bit weird or something, that is certainly something that draws me in. Things on book covers that draw you in. I'm such a child. I like colorful covers. I know. I'm an old woman and I should be, drawn to the more sophisticated stuff, but I just like it colorful. But I think what is, you know this if you're following me, but I always touch the cover. I have one book here that's Idaho, and which is colorful, and I like the little blood on the flowers that give you an indication if you really look carefully. I know, Adam, you hate this kind of cover with flowers and everything, but I like it. But this, you can't see it, but it's not entirely smooth, and especially not glossy, because I hate that, but it's a little rough to the touch and it's floppy. So these two things, for me, actually are more important than just the cover picture. It's like how the book feels. What can you do? I'm weird like that. Anyway, nonfiction, number 8, nonfiction buzzwords, type of nonfiction that you are drawn to. Anything to do with physics, quantum, particles, Big Bang stuff, but anything to do with physics is really interests me. And the other thing is memoir. It's one of my favorite nonfiction genres is memoir, and whenever I see a title and underneath it says a memoir, I will most likely pick it up. other non-fiction, yeah, anything sciencey. If it's has something to do with science, I'm will probably at least check it out. I mean, there's lots of science that I'm not that interested in, but if it is a science book, yeah, I'm have to say I'm not that into travel writing or travel books. It's just not my thing. So there you have a negative again. And cooking or food, eating, not something that I'm drawn to. So another negative. Just give me the science and the quantum particles and, something to chew on. I love those kind of books. Number 9, medical or physical conditions of characters. I don't think I have a preference here or a special interest. Let me think. Well, maybe that I'm always more drawn to mental conditions or issues, mental health issues, than I'm drawn to physical issues. That's probably something. But I don't think I have, a specific medical or physical condition that I'm especially interested in. Number 10, a time of year or time in history or future that you are drawn to. Well, the last part of the question I think I answered already. I love dystopian and alternative history. So whenever it says that on the book blurb, I will at least read more, check it out, do a 112 page check to see whether the writing is something for me. Time of year, I'm not a summer person. So books where there is a lot of heat, it's not something that I'm drawn to. I like, the same goes for extreme cold. I'm just not good with weather in general. I mean, if it's just not bothering you, that's my kind of weather. So spring and autumn, the temperatures that are just not in your face, either too warm, too hot, or too cold, that's my kind of thing. So I tend not to gravitate towards books that are set in a smoldering heat or in an extreme cold. But again, you will call me out, because if you check my reads and the books I love, there are books that are set in, Arctic climate or in the heat of the summer, and I still love them. So it's not a no-go. Time in history, I don't read that much historical fiction, but I like, like really old Greek, Roman, so before Christ. I like that. I like Egyptian, old history, so ancient pharaoh time Egyptian. Renaissance is a time period that always draws me in, also because of the science aspect of that period. I'm not that into, Tudor, Windsor, that kind of thing. It's just not something that immediately appeals to me. But again, repeating myself over and over again, if it's done well and if there's some interesting premise, it's not a reason for me not to pick up a book. So those were the 10 questions, but there are 2 bonus questions. Number 1, any other bookish boxes or buzzwords not already mentioned? And when I thought about it just now, I could have mentioned that, of course, before, but there's one I didn't mention, and that is art. Whenever I see a book about an artist, I mean, historical figure, a real life artist, or just a protagonist who happens to be an artist, or about the art scene, about a piece of art, so real or made up, I will always gravitate towards these books. I love books where art plays a role in one way or the other. And bonus number 2, what bookish boxes or buzzword turn you away from a book? Well, my first answer, of course, is the answer I think almost everybody gave who had done this, the tag, and that's the word girl in the title. If it's about a protagonist that is older than 17 or 18. I mean, if it's a book about two 10-year-old girls and their friendship or whatever, fine. Those are girls. But titles like Gone Girl, excuse me, Girl on, I'm so agitated, I start to cough. Girl on the Train, those are not girls, those are women. So I'm really hate that. But if you listen carefully, I read, I mentioned a book earlier that I really liked about the retelling, The Silence of the Girls. I hate the title because it's about a woman, Briseis, who is a 20-ish year old woman, but I love the book anyway. So it's not an absolute no-go, but it needs something else to draw me to that book if there's a girl in the title and it's not about a girl, but about a woman. And another thing that I really hate, and that's not so much about the title, but about the blurb, either on the front or the back, these blurbs, this is the new Handmaid's Tale. This is the new Gone Girl. For lovers of Gone Girl and Girl on the Train. That's not selling it to me at all. First of all, it's more often than not a book that I didn't particularly like Gone Girl. So if this is like Gone Girl, which I didn't like, it's not a selling point, at least not for me. But even if I like the book, like The Handmaid's Tale, I just hate the idea that this is a rehash of an earlier book. I mean, first of all, I think it's lazy from the publicists, but I also don't think it's a good selling point to tell me, well, this book has been done already and really well done. And here is another book that's trying to do the same. I don't know. I don't know if there are people who are actually drawn to that kind of blurb, but I'm not. It's not a selling point for me. Anyway, these were the Bookish boxes and buzzwords tags question. I'm not going to tag anyone because this tag is really, really old. But maybe you're new to BookTube or you haven't done this tag for any other reason. If that's the case, please consider yourself tagged because it's a real fun tag to do. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, please leave your comments down below. I'm looking forward to talking to you, and I'll see you all soon in the next one. Bye-bye.